today I am going to answer a question that has come up with my students, and they were wondering, well, we know how to create 3D scenes within Adobe Dimensions, but what happens if, let's say, we have a logo, or let's say there's an object that I can't find the 3D element within Adobe Dimensions or stock website, etc. What do we do? So in this case, I'm going to show you how I can convert an item that I created in Illustrator, this logo, into a 3D element, and then I can use it in Dimensions and apply materials to it and really make it as part of a scene that I can use within marketing materials or really anything. So let's jump right in and let's get started. Now, here you'll notice over here is that I'm going to be taking this element and this element separately in. You can decide to group items together and bring it in as one. That's totally up to you. In this case, I'm going to be taking the pieces separately because I want to use maybe the icon separately, like a sort of like a mascot kind of thing. And then I would like to then take the wording separately because, well, it just makes more sense to do it that way. You could also decide to select both of them and then, have it as one 3D item. So totally up to you. You'll notice over here, I'm just going to click on this object right here. I'm going to go to my effect menu. I'm going to go to 3D and materials and choose extrude and bevel. Over here, within Illustrator itself, you do have the capacity of working with 3D objects and materials and all that. I personally find that applying materials or doing things within Illustrator itself, it's not very powerful. So I personally like to just convert it to a 3D object within Illustrator and then bring it into Dimensions to actually put the different items on it. I could put lighting, I could do whatever I need to it and apply different materials. Say I want it to be translucent materials, and I'll show you a little bit of that within Dimensions, but we actually go through within our 3D course, which is included as part of our masterclass and level up course, or you could even take it separately. So right over here, I'm just going to click on this and you'll notice that I have this created. I'm just going to convert it into gray. It's just easier for me to see. It doesn't really matter what it looks like specifically, but one thing I will mention to you, and this is something that you just want to be aware of, is that at the moment, this specific object has very sharp edges. Now, if you would like your 3D object to have more soft edges, let's say it has sharp edges right here, if you want it to be soft or round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my 3D and materials panel. I'm going to turn on the bevel. And what the bevel will allow me to do is it will allow me to apply some sort of bevel to it. Now, by default, it's set to classic, but if you set it to round, you'll notice that you'll get more of a roundish edge. It doesn't look like just a sharp cornered edge, which is something that is helpful, especially if you want something to appeal more soft or more plasticky and stuff like that. And when it has that hard edge at the end, it ends up looking very harsh and it doesn't look as roundish, plasticky, fun, etc. So that's what I did over here. But one thing you need to be careful about is the width. You'll notice that if you do too much of a width, you'll see that inside the logo, you're losing some of the elements over here. It gets a little bit wonky, if you want to say it like that. Now, you see that? So here is how you could actually like rotate it and actually see what it looks like. And I'm just going to turn this to be just a tad of that roundish. You see how it looks a little bit roundish over there, but without it being, well, too much. And then you'll also notice the height. This is, you could decide on how much of the roundness you want. So let's just rotate this around a little bit so we could see a little bit what's going on there. You see that, what that looks like. And then you could lower that so it's just really a tad, and then this way the details over here and the pieces of the cutouts don't get lost in the shuffle. So we have this over here. You will notice that there's other options of bevel inside. I'm not sure what that does exactly. Bevel both sides. I guess it's going to bevel both sides. I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to turn that off. And then of course, just you could play around with seeing what classic does for you and what convex does for you. There's different types that you have here, and maybe it actually can work very well. So sometimes, it's worthwhile to play around with things to see what you'll get. But in this case, I'm just doing round, and I'm just going to rotate this a little bit so I can see like what the edges over here look like, and maybe I want this to be a little bit more rounded. Okay, perfect. And then once you're done with that, you can just export it. So you'll see I have my asset export panel open. You use the asset export in order to export things in different file formats, such as, let's say, for the web, or in this case, if you'd like to export it as an OBJ file, which can then be used in Adobe Dimensions. So right over here, you could just right click and choose export selection, and then it will appear right over here as the last asset name. And then you could actually name this as rounded logo, and you could just export the asset. You just want to make sure, first of all, that you set it to OBJ. And you'll see there are different file formats over here. There's SVG, there's OBJ. Like if you were exporting this, let's say to Blender for more complex 3D, you would export this as an SVG file. But over here, we're going to export it as an OBJ file and then just choose where you want to put it. So I just have it in my B team folder, click on export asset. And then right over here, you can then go to your next one over here and do the same thing. You can go to extrude it. Let's just go to our object and appearance panel. I think I have this already set up as such. We're just gonna change the color over here to something that we could actually see. And then again, if you want it to be soft, of course you could turn on a little bit bevel over here and then make sure that this is set, let's say, to round. So it's just going to be like a softer kind of edge over there. And again, you can decide to right click and you could just click on export selection, or you'll notice there's the option of collect for export, and that will just add it in here. And then you can save it afterwards. So rounded logo words. And then right over here, once you're ready to go, you can just click on the specific item you want to export, or you could select multiple. Just click on this, click on export, it brings you back to the panel that you could select where you want to export it to, select folder. Okay, and then it's going to render it. Oh, because I already have a setup here. I forgot to mention the step that right over here is where you set up how you want it to be. So you could, let's say, have multiple objects, right? And each one you could export it as a different file if you wanted to. And this is also great, let's say sometimes if you need to export multiple pieces for branding, etc. So you could export it as PNG files, you could export it as a PDF, etc. Just add the assets in here and then you could really export it all at one time in bulk. But you'll see the reason why it exported it, well, to the one I wanted, because it already had the OBJ set up over here. So when I chose export, right, it just exported it in that format that was specified over here. You could also decide to export it at different file sizes and types. So as you see over here, you could export one item as multiple file types. So you could put it in here one time in the asset export, and then you could choose PNG, PDF, or whatever you want it to be, SVG, etc., etc. Okay, so that's part one. Part two would actually be bringing it into Adobe Dimensions. So we're just going to go into Dimensions. And then right over here, I have a new document open. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to be bringing it in. So I go to File, I choose Import, I choose 3D Model, and I'm going to then go to where it is. So right over here, I have my rounded logo. I'm going to click on, see, it tells me what it is. I'm going to click on Open. And voila, I have that nicely in here. Just going to move that up. We are just going to rotate this just a tad, and maybe we're also going to make this bigger. There we go. And then, of course, we can decide to apply a surface. So you could apply whatever you want. Of course, you want it to be colored however way you want it to be. I'm not going to go into all that color changes and all that kind of stuff, but I do want to show you something cool. You could even apply, let's say, a glass effect. And I'm now going to click on and import an image as a background. So let's say we'll go to my downloads and let's find this. Okay, here we go. And then I can actually just import this. And what's really cool about this is, you know, you could just have it looking like it's sitting nicely on this desk. Here nicely, it's on the surface. And then if you really want to go a step further, you could even decide to give this, you know, a little bit of a color. So it could be translucent, but it could be translucent, you know, stuff like that. So this is really cool. And as you see, it is a 3D, it's a totally 3D object. And depending on how you show it, of course, you could catch a little glimpse of light there. So it really looks really nice. And there are lots of different effects. I just wanted to show you this for now. So good luck in creating some cool creations, and I just want to like tempt you. You could really draw anything here and make it into 3D. And I'm just going to do one more thing here because I really can't resist. So let's say we'll just draw something like this, right? Clicking on this, we're just going to go now to our effects, 3D and materials, and we're going to choose over here, revolve. And now you'll notice you have this 3D object. You could revolve it in different directions. So you'll notice is that you could revolve it from the right edge, which will give you this nice little vase. And then if you want, you could just drag that in there. We'll call this vase. Okay, I didn't really do much. I just like did it, dragged it in. You could have done this, let's say, and created a becher too. So if you want, you just draw like half of it, right? And here you'll notice you have a very rudimentary kind of becher, which we'll bring in as well. And yeah, and then you could just bring it in here. So we'll just go to File, Import 3D Model, but we can't import it yet. One second here. We're just going to select these two. We're going to export it as over here too. We'll just choose B Team because we're in there anyways. And then we're just going to go here, File, Import 3D Model. And then we're just going to go over here and we're going to get our vase here, just like that. Okay. And we're just going to bring this up. We're going to make this bigger. Okay. Let's bring that right over here. And then let's say we want this to be metal. And you'll notice right now is that you have this beautiful metal looking vase over here. Not sure if it's sitting exactly straight. Maybe it is. Okay, so here's that. And then, you know, there's so many different surfaces that you could apply to this if you wanted to, but that's really cool. And then we're just going to go to import 3D model. And now we're going to import the becher. Okay. So here we go. I'm just going to hide my logo from here. Okay. So here we go. We're just going to make this bigger, just like that. And then we're just going to apply some silver to it. And yeah, does it look like exactly how I want it to be? But I drew it so fast, but you could really, you know, really fine tune it and really get something amazing. But what I love about this is that it allows you then to create your own custom creations in Illustrator. And then you could convert it into a 3D model and really get something nice. So yeah, looking forward to see what you come up with.